I'm joined today with Sarah Shooter, a member of the Ohio Department of Children and Youth Child and Young Adult Support Team. I'm super excited to have you here today to talk about your experience with adoption and how it's impacted your life.
Thank you so much. I'm excited for the opportunity.
So Sarah, in your experience, do you want to give us a little bit around how adoption has impacted you?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start personally. I was adopted as an infant. It was through an Ohio adoption. And then I decided I would go into child welfare as a profession. And then when my husband and I were married, we decided that we would like to have children. And our first choice was adoption. We brought our son home through adoption in January of 21.
You know, child welfare is not often the first choice people make. They think of sometimes the negative. So I'm so glad that you had a positive experience. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about and how you made that decision to land in this space?
So I actually did not plan to go into child welfare. Both of my parents are social workers, so I guess it was inevitable that I would end up here. I planned to be a teacher. And one of my jobs in college was at a children's residential center. And I met a young lady there who had the dreams of going to college, but she told me she couldn't. And when I asked why, she said, well, I'm adopted, and no one told me I could. And it was in that moment I shared with her that I was adopted, and she was putting it together that, you're in college and you were adopted? I said, it could happen. And that young lady's story really stuck with me, and I decided to switch, go into child welfare. I wanted to work with youth and young adults in care to help them see that there's opportunities beyond where they're at currently.
That is awesome. There's so much that can be good when you get to make that connection with a child. So you also adopted your son. Can you talk a little bit about how that's impacted your family, maybe even extended family?
Absolutely. Our son has brought so much joy to our lives. It was definitely an emotional roller coaster, a very long and emotional roller coaster, but taught my husband and I so much patience, brought us together, and truly showed to us, how big our community is that wrapped around to support us during this time. My sister was able, she has two young girls at the time that Mason was, joined our family, and they all got to come to the courthouse to see the adoption and the finalization. And I don't know what we would do without their cousin, their baby Mason is still what they call him, baby Mason.
That's awesome. Well, I think a lot of times when we think about adoption and we're talking to families about adoption, we talk about what it's like for the child and how it can be beneficial to the child, and you hit on that. But you also brought up how it's impacted your family. If you were talking to a prospective adoptive family, what guidance would you give them? What encouragement would you say?
If you have any thought of adopting, look into it, ask lots of questions, connect with the agencies. Just remember, it's a lifelong journey. It's lifelong for everyone, for the child, for you as parents and your extended family and community of supports. We don't stop needing our parents at the age of 18. As an adult, we still need our parents. And there's ups and downs. It's not just the adoption finalization and it's smooth sailing. I remember growing up having some difficulties as you get into your early teens and kind of identifying who I am and where I came from, but it's forever. It might not fix everything, but it changes everything.
That is great. Well, I think our best way to recruit more foster parents or adoptive parents is for people like you to share your stories and talk about the impact it's not only had on your son, but on you as well, which is great, and really appreciate you taking the time to share this information and your passion for this work and what you've done with your family. So if anyone is interested in learning more about adoption, you can go to fosterandadopt.ohio.gov and learn more about the process and how you can look into becoming an adoptive parent. Hi, I'm Kara Wente, Director of the Ohio Department of Children and Youth. November is National Adoption Month, a great time to talk about the need for adoptive families and the impact adoption has on children and families. Right now in Ohio, there are 3,200 children and youth waiting in foster homes and other out-of-home settings for an adoptive family. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to be married. You don't need to be a certain age to adopt in Ohio. You just need to be willing to share your life with a young person who needs a loving home. Every adoption is unique because all children and families are unique. I hope hearing Sarah's story will inspire you to consider how adoption can enrich your life and provide a permanent, stable home for a child. To find out more, visit fosterandadopt.ohio.gov.